throw it.
Today, live from the Pinecrest Inn, it's the Smylie Show. So long, everybody.
This is the Smylie Show.
Welcome back to the Smylie Show, where I'm looking at Smylie Kaufman on the road, getting ready for a broadcast in the Palm Beaches. Thankfully, none of you saw what just happened for the previous half hour. We were tech troubleshooting. Anything we can do to bring you all a show. Smylie, I'm excited about, I say this every week, I feel like, but really and truly, not only is there a lot of stuff we have to talk about from the competition this week, from the tournament, the Genesis Invitational, there's a ton of stuff off the course as well. We're going to look forward to the Florida swing. We're going to wrap up the West Coast swing. But we were texting this morning, man. I feel like I did not expect to care this much about the Winter Olympics. My children are into it. What a gold medal hockey game, buddy.
Man, I was completely dialed into this game. I mean, just couldn't breathe for a while. Like, it legitimately was. I've never been that locked and loaded in watching a sports game in quite some time. And I didn't even know what was going on. Like, when the puck would get across the line, I never knew if everybody had to go back and touch the line and do suicides. I know basic hockey, but the whole blue line thing always throws me off. Like, if the puck is in or out, shame on me, right? Like but I'm from Alabama, y'all. Like, we might have two rinks.
I played like maybe 3 or 4 years of junior hockey in Fresno, California. Also not a hockey hotbed. And I'm sitting there today watching with my wife, my mother-in-law, and all of a sudden I'm like an expert. They're like, how does this work with icing? Well, 2-line passes, and hey, what's a penalty kill? What's a power play? We're getting into like, well, yeah, it's late in the third period and the ice is chewed up. So these guys are losing their skates. They got these high stick penalties. And
is that what happened? So they were losing their skates because of the ice?
I don't know. Something I said to my wife, my mother-in-law, to sound like an expert. But I did love so much the guy that scores the winning goal, Jack Hughes, in overtime, which, by the way, this was actually kind of fun because when we were in COVID, you and I have talked about, we went on these video game kicks, and I was big into NHL 2K at the time. Oh. So Quinn Hughes, Jack Hughes were my guys. I got on the little build a team thing. So Jack Hughes of the New Jersey Devils scored that winning goal after getting high sticked and losing, a large chunk of his front teeth. Is just so perfect for the way this thing played out. So perfect.
I was surprised when we got into the overtime period and finding out that it was 3v3. That threw me off. And when that happened, I was like, oh, we could actually win this, because when it was, just normal, I guess 5-on-5,
yeah,
we were not going to beat that team. They were so much better than we were for pretty much the entire game that I watched.
A lot of extra ice to cover out there. That's another thing you can say to your family, friends, and loved ones. Hey, a lot of extra ice, a lot of extra skating you got to do when it's 3-on-3.
It looked like 6-on-5 for the second and the third period, and how they did not ended up scoring. And the amount of
Hellebuck stood on his head. Oh, yeah. So good. So good. Yeah. Yeah, the memes, the one guy, which we cannot say on the show, but just waving the stands like, I'll summarize. I'll paraphrase. He was gonna have a good time tonight. Yeah. He was gonna have a real good time tonight. And the stuff we see on the back end, it looks like he did have a good time tonight. So that's awesome though. I was into this. The figure skater from like Oakland who won, Alyssa Liu. I was all behind that. I was into all the free skiing stuff too. Like the kids loved all the girl who went to Stanford, represents China, Eileen Gu. Like, they were all about her, all the tricks and the spins in the air and everything. Walker wants to learn skiing now. Who would have thought, man? I just leaving the Winter Olympics, big winter sports guy.
I probably didn't watch as much as I expected to. I never knew when it was really on. I like watching live events.
Yes.
And so I think like later in the day.
That was so good about this morning.
I know. I didn't want to get scooped on something later in the day. I'm like, why am I watching something that's already happened? So I think that got me later, but I was really excited to wake up this morning and see, what time's the hockey game? It was like, perfect. Before I leave, I get to watch most of the game before I even get on my airplane. So that was nice.
There's nothing better. I was saying this morning too. Like, I don't want an 8 o'clock, tip off or kickoff. I'm in bed. Like, have my whole family in the living room watching a gold medal hockey game together. Nothing better. Nothing better.
Push it to the fall. Let's talk about these 7:30 kickoffs that end at 11:30 at night. I mean,
Brutal.
I hope they move this 11 a.m. window, Central Time, of course. I know you're at the noon. It's a big noon kickoff or whatever it's called. Let's move it back. Like, let's move it up an hour from there. Give me a 10 a.m. kickoff. It's like when you're on the West Coast watching games, it's the best. Like, you wake up
so good.
And there's already games on.
Yeah, can you imagine college age versions of us? Like, this would be heresy. Like, what? I don't have time to pregame? Like, everything needs to be 8 o'clock.
11 a.m. game?
No, thank you.
Nope.
Yeah, it was good stuff. Fun to see the Americans win. The stats on that, too, I did not realize. You sent over the stat where this is the first gold medal the Americans have won since 1980, the Miracle on Ice. But
I thought they just kept playing into that. I thought they just, I thought they'd won multiple since then, right?
Yeah, I'd assume.
Seemed like they had. And so I was like, why do they keep bringing this thing back up? Well, there's some mystery.
It's big.
Yeah.
And only 3 gold medal finals against Canada, and they lost the previous 2. So this is a big one. Big one. USA. I was throwing my daughter up in the air. USA. Just loving it. It was lots of patriotism in this house.
Fran said that Anna Carter and her were not watching. He's like, you need to go watch before overtime and tell Anna Carter to sing the national anthem. And Fran said that she sang it with pride. And
yes.
So if you're going to wonder why
Amazing.
The USA hockey won, it's because Anna Carter provided the appropriate amount of good juju heading into overtime.
Way to go, AC.
Patriotism.
Things you love to hear. Well, that was the morning. And then, kind of as we moved into the afternoon, of course, we had the final round of the Genesis Invitational at Riviera. And man, this one, it looked like we started the day where Jacob Bridgeman had, I believe, a 6-shot lead over Rory McIlroy. He started the day at 19 under, Rory at 13. And so it was going to take a lot for someone to come from behind and win this thing. But we got it down. He had a 1-shot lead coming in that final hole. Kurt Kitayama had posted 17 under. Rory was on the tee at 16 under, and Jacob Bridgeman was at 18 under. And Rory made a long birdie putt to get to 17. So there was a chance. Bridgeman hit a really nice approach shot in there on 18, but leaves that putt up the hill and has a nervy 4-footer that he needs to clean up to win his first PGA Tour event. But that is exactly what he did to win by a shot over Kitayama and McIlroy. And this has been a guy, Smylie, it's been on our radar for a while. You suggested him a couple weeks ago and one and done. I just want to kind of retrace some. You did. You did. That's something I remember it vividly. I'm glad you don't remember. We should might be one of those weeks when we suggested like 9 guys. So. That's great. But this is a guy that I want to kind of retrace the steps a little bit for people who he's just landing on the radar for the first time. 26 years old. He went to Clemson. I went back and looked at this. Finished second in the 2022 PGA Tour U standings behind Pearson Coody. And so ends up on the Korn Ferry Tour, ends his PGA Tour card after the 2023 Korn Ferry Tour season. So this is his 3rd year as a PGA Tour member. And if you go back, he landed on my radar for the first time last year, 2025 Cognizant, so almost exactly a year ago. He's had 30 starts since then. He's had 13 top 20s, 8 top 10s, and 6 top 5s. He's played some really good golf over that stretch. So I want to kind of go back and compare, look at his 2025 stats. What did he do well to 2026? And so here, for his 2025 stats through the Tour Championship, not including the FedEx Cup ball, 14th in strokes gained putting. His superpower really is putting, and they mentioned that as much on the broadcast today of like how he kind of gets it done when he plays well. Pretty solid around the green. He was 63rd in strokes gained around the green this last year, but 114th in strokes gained approach and 111th in strokes gained off the tee. So those are kind of his areas to improve. If you look at the splits off the tee between last year and this year, he averaged 302 yards off the tee in 25. This year, he's up 5 yards, 307 yards off the tee. His ball speed last year was a shade under 173. This year, he's got it to 175.2. He gained nearly 2.5 miles per hour of ball speed off the tee. And then this week was, of course, first in strokes gained putting, was first in strokes gained approach. That Saturday effort just flushed it. So to kind of take it back to the beginning of refreshing your jogging memory, this has been a guy you've been on, you've talked about.
only do you have like, oh, well, we don't know we're going to play an arbitration for our top pitcher in school ball. He gets the $30 million. You go and get Valdez, who's 32 years old, and you pay him 3 years, $115. Now you have a legitimate 1-2 punch and still have Flaherty in that lineup as well. If you're looking at a move singularly that I didn't expect to happen here and loved it, Detroit's move to get Framber Valdez, sensational for me.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
The expectations were big for this team coming into this season. They've struggled to live up to them. When you think about the 4 losses for Purdue, they've really felt ugly. Iowa State smashed this team in their building. They dropped the game to UCLA and followed it up by losing at home to Illinois.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
I have my own account. I don't need to have any. He didn't say any of that. So I'm of the belief that if someone accuses you of something and you don't deny it, there's a reason you didn't deny it. Because you kind of feel like they got me, and yes, I'm not going to tell you I did it, but I did it. Yeah. Don't you think so?
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
Yeah, and with the Clippers, Craig, it feels like Kawhi is on the island. We saw him ball out in the All-Star game the other day. Kawhi was very impressive, and he's had a fantastic season. I think when you look at the Clippers, if the Clippers' record was better, but he's still James Harden, you would be talking about Kawhi as an MVP candidate. He's been one of the best players in the league in terms of how he's been playing. He's been fantastic.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
The stats I read you on Bridgeman goes back to last year at the Cognizant, but Goddard from the Scottish Open on has come on really strong. And I just want to compare those two and just talk about the differences in their ceiling. We know Chris Goddard's a bomber. We know Bridgeman's superpower is putting. How sustainable do you think both of their skill sets are long term, and could they end up on some of these Ryder Cup, President's Cup teams together?
Oh, they're on a great path right now. I think it would be some new blood on the team, and I think Brandt Snedeker, he's no fool, right? Like, he's going to take guys that are in form and playing the best, especially coming off of a Ryder Cup that, America, I think we all expected them to win a home game. They didn't. So I think it's safe to say and fair that Sneds is going to take the team that he wants to bring. And his agent, also the same agent for Jacob Bridgeman. So he's been familiar with this kid probably for a very, very long time. Maybe not as much with Chris Goddard, but he turned on the television any time at the beginning of this year, and Goddard was winning golf tournaments. So Goddard and Bridgeman definitely both very much on the radar to be on this President's Cup team this year. But even that's way too far in advance for me to even think about that, because of I want to see how these guys play at the majors this year. I think if these two guys, somehow played in the majors together as Chris Bridgeman, or let's say even Jacob Goddard, the combination that these guys have in their games, I mean, just they complement each other great. Maybe they'd be great partners to the President's Cup, but I just see so much greatness in different aspects of their game, with Goddard being such a good putter and such a good, or I should say, Bridgeman being such a good putter and such a good iron player. Goddard's just an unbelievable driver of the golf ball. Excited to see, what these guys are going to be able to do at the majors.
Dude, Jake Goddard would absolutely smoke Chris Bridgeman. Like, Jake Goddard's got to give Chris Bridgeman 3 or 4 aside, maybe. I think one of the interesting things, too, that I thought about today was looking at Jacob Bridgeman's sort of background. He's from Greenville, South Carolina, obviously played for Clemson. I think there was another nugget on the broadcast where this is the first time he's really played on Poe in a competitive setting. I mean, I'm sure he's played on Poe before, but just, putting on that can be difficult. And we saw a little bit of nerves with some certain putts today, but he cleaned everything up that he needed to clean up to win this golf tournament. So, Smylie, let's move next to the other guy in that final pairing, Rory McIlroy, who really, as kind of as we mentioned, didn't really have it with the putter until that long one made at the 18th, but still shoots 67 to only finish a shot off the winning score in this tournament, which at the beginning of the day, you're 6 back. You tell Rory McIlroy you finished a shot off the lead. He feels like he played pretty good today. So just let's look at his season in its totality right now. Opens with 2 starts on the DP World Tour in Dubai. One of those is a tie for 3rd. Then starts his PGA Tour season at Pebble last week, finishes tied for 14th in his title defense, and then comes here and finishes tied for 2nd at Riv, almost backdoors his way into that playoff. I think with Rory, man, I have the sense this could be a really big year for him. I'm not going to project that he was particularly burdened before this season, but I think there's just somewhat of a weight that seems like it's lifted off him. He's completed the career Grand Slam. Your objective from this point on is how many additional major championships can I win to add to my career legacy? Was watching him warm up on the range today before his final tee time, and he just looked so relaxed and carefree, even though he knew he had to go out and probably shoot a 65 to have a chance to win this thing. And that to me feels like a very, very dangerous man as we look to the rest of the season. I think a lot of wins and maybe a couple of majors should be coming his way in 2026.
Yeah, definitely. There's some encouraging signs. And Rory McIlroy, like you said, it appears that he's playing with a ton of confidence, not having to worry about a whole lot. I think he's still has, just that driver that's so good, man. And what he was able to show off with that club this week, nobody else is able to do. He can hit driver into a different world that nobody can, but he also can bring it down and play shots down on the ground and get the ball chasing down the fairway. His versatility with that club, he's still going to be, for in our generation, the best driver of the golf ball that we'll ever witness, probably. That's how good this guy is with this club. Now this week, I really was impressed at times really with his iron game. And I think heading into this season, that was the one aspect I thought he could improve on. He had inconsistent weeks with the irons. He'd have good weeks, some bad weeks. It's kind of been the trend over the last 3 or 4 years with him. He'll just start getting a little bit underneath it, struggle to hit fades, and then sometimes the wedge game becomes a bit of an issue. But coming off of Pebble, where he had too many big numbers, got a couple drives that maybe didn't go his way. Putting was a bit of a struggle inside 6 feet. But remember, this is Poana, bumpy greens. Sometimes you just got to chalk it up as you hit good putts that just didn't go in the hole. And I think that's fair. I think most players can probably accept that that problem that you might have on Poana green. So with Rory, I thought he was very close. He probably wishes he didn't start quite as many back to feel like he can put a little bit more pressure on him. But just go to that bunker shot he hit on the 12th hole, 40-yard bunker shot, most likely going to be making bogey from there. Sometimes makes birdie. He kept himself in the golf tournament. Birdies the last couple holes, comes up one short, and you're like, man, just one shot. Felt like it was a lot more than that, but it just hung in there tough.
Can you imagine how that would have gone in a playoff? A Bridgeman, Kitayama, McIlroy playoff. And I think the other interesting thing that was a storyline leading into this week was how seemingly difficult it is for superstars to win at Riv. Tiger's never won here. Scottie Scheffler's never won here. Rory's never won here. There are a number of other greats as well. Do you think that's more of a reflection on the golf course itself, or as we're going to get into later in the show, the conditions this week? Why do you think that is?
Well, I think this golf course, I think it's tough to be a chaser on it. And this week proved to be a little different than that because Jacob Bridgeman was able to get such a big lead. But all the guys who ended up second, third, Adam Scott, Kitayama, really low rounds today. But typically at Riviera, you want to be in that last group or the second to last group because, a 3-4 under round score is a really good score. And sometimes it could be the low score of the day. So it was just an unusual week. It's not the same Riv when it's this soft. So it's a bummer that we had that much rain on Tuesday and Wednesday to just take the gas out of this place.
Smylie, when something happens once, can potentially be an outlier. When something happens twice, maybe it's a coincidence. When something happens 3 times, could be the beginning of a trend.
How much do you think tanking is hurting the NBA right now, too? And what we're seeing, like we saw with that Jazz and Orlando game a week ago, how much do you think that's hurting the game?
I can't wait until professional sports in the United States adopts a European model, especially like a Premier League model, and they start doing relegation. The day you start doing relegation, everything changes. Everything will change.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
Well, I ended up adding this since our show started here, Rohit, but his points prop tonight at 20.5 is the same number from the Iowa State game. That's a bit of a mistake, right? When we consider the gap in opponents here. I think Peterson specifically steps up. He needs to. I think he kind of owes this team a great performance.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
I know that Florida lost at home to Auburn, and it's a real thing that happened. So you can't strike it from the record. But if you did, I think Florida's looked like the best team in college basketball for about 2 months. And I think there are a bunch of results that suggest that.
College basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
And I just want to point you to Scottie Scheffler's first round scoring average in the past 3 starts, which is 73. 73 at the WM, 72 at the AT&T, now 74 at the Genesis. Are you worried he's going to lose his card? No, I'm just kidding. What do you have any theories? I mean, here's the other thing on the flip side of this, which is this was his worst finish of the 3, and it was a tied for 12th. He tied for 3rd of the WM, tied for 4th at the AT&T. I mean, he has played exceptionally well in his next 3 rounds. But any theories behind this sort of interesting trend we've seen develop the last 3 times out for him with these slow starts?
Well, it seems, dating back to, let's see, it would have been the Phoenix Open was the first one that he had. Mm-hmm. He was just off that day, and it kind of felt like it was the irons that day. And then you move it a week later at the Pebble Beach, also was the irons. And then fast forward to Riv this week. I will give him a little bit of credit here. I think he had the bad wave when it came to the Thursday tee times because of the restart that they had around, I guess it was probably around 4:00 when they got back out there. Just one of those long days. I'm sure he had to warm up multiple times. He comes out, he has to play in gusty winds. Earlier in the day, sure, it was a little windy, but it kind of was more rain than anything. It's soft scoring conditions. So I'll explain this to you when it comes to what the players dealt with on Thursday and a little bit of Friday. When you have gusty winds, soft fairways, soft greens, and really fast slopey greens, Poana, that's a really difficult combination because when you have greens that are pitched back to front and you're trying to take spin off the golf ball with wet ground, wet golf ball, well, I guess maybe not quite as wet of a golf ball because it's lift clean in place, but even still with a clean golf ball, guys are hitting these knockdown shots that are flying hole high. They're ripping it back 40 feet. And then you throw in, you might get a gust 20 miles an hour back into your face to a back pin. You're like, how am I supposed to get this anywhere near the hole? And it felt like to me that Scottie just got in some weird places, hit putts that just didn't go in. And like the putting in the iron game was off. But I think a lot of it had to do with just being a weird afternoon of weather that I thought was really challenging conditions. And a lot of people were like, no, dude, it was really soft. Like when it's soft, it's easy. Sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes when it's too soft, it can be even more difficult when you have really fast greens and throw in some wind.
Yeah, and it just was, you're seeing things this week that you never expect from a tour event, let alone Riv, right? Like I think it was Adam Scott on Thursday or Friday who hit a tee shot that the ball just plugged right in the middle of the green. And I think we'll discuss a little bit of that later on the show as it relates to venue, but I think it's it can be a challenging one, a tricky one, but then you flip on the TV on Sunday and Scott Scheffler back 931 to close this thing out. And it's just he's on his bad weeks, the fact that he still is doing what he's doing is not equally as impressive, but just, a statement of what a class player he is.
Yeah, the top 10 streak unfortunately came to an end. I think it was 17 straight that he had. So coming up short on the top 10, finishing 12th. But just to expand on that just a little bit further when it comes to just his iron game, what makes him such a good iron player? It's his ability to hit the ball up into the air. So his apex is very, very high. He's great at he has so much feel in his hands and with how far he's going to hit the golf ball. And so I think that gets negated a little bit when the greens get really, really soft and he's having to bring the flight down, and all of a sudden everybody's kind of having to hit the same type of shot versus everybody's trying to hit the shot that Scotty can hit over and over again, which is just these high, soft, floaty ones that he makes look just so easy.
Well, I think it was even on Thursday, and I was watching maybe prior to the broadcast window opening on PGA Tour Live, where there was one hole where he hit a shot that he was trying to bring the flight down, and then it came up well short. And his remark to Ted Scott was like, "Oh, maybe I shouldn't have flighted that down." The wind, it can be a tricky element. Sometimes you're flighting it down, and the wind's kind of pushing it down even further. And so there is an element of variability there, to your point, where it's. Do we like watching it as fans because it's difficult for these guys and all these different changing variables make it harder and the score's lower and we enjoy that sitting on our couch, just hanging out? Yes, that's fun. But at the same time, it is a less precise test, right? Whereas under normal conditions, what Scotty's doing is the more impressive skill set, the ability to kind of bring this flight up and change flights and land it soft on firm, fast greens. That's the sort of elite skill as it relates to iron play that not many other guys have. So
yes, that's what he's got, and he's not going to take it down off, man. He's just not going to do it. And when he loses that edge is when you're going to start to see middle of the pack finishes with this guy. But he holds himself to such a high standard. That's what all the great players do.
I know that Florida lost at home to Auburn, and it's a real thing that happened. So you can't strike it from the record. But if you did, I think Florida's looked like the best team in college basketball for about 2 months. And I think there are a bunch of results that suggest that.
College basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
One check, one stroke of a pen, $43 million that you now have to spend in free agency. Ain't it fun?
Yeah, you take the money out of the left pocket, you put it in the right pocket, basically, Donnie. But you also free up the ability to be able to sign other players. Nobody did this better than the Patriots and Tom Brady in his career, right?
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
George Rutschman is an interesting one here. I mean, this was somebody that we were told was going to be a superstar. I feel like we've done this now with back-to-back young catchers on Baltimore that they've taken. They've taken Matt Wieters. Remember when they took him super high and everyone thought he was the second coming? Then they took Adley Rutschman. I guess the good news is they have Sam Basallo, who's supposed to be fantastic too, but can't whiff on three like that, can you?
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
let's play a little game of West Coast swing with Scotty Scheffler.
Okay.
So let's remove the Phoenix Open. Let's remove Amex. Two golf courses that are desert courses, firm golf courses that naturally you would think would be an advantage to Scotty Scheffler, and his results show that. He's played very well at Amex and Phoenix. Now, if we just look at the Pebble Beach event and then also Genesis, he's never had a top 5 in, let's see, and this is throwing into the U.S. Open in 2019 at Pebble. He's played 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times, has only had one top 5, and that was at Pebble Beach this past week, where, you know, it was a come from behind top 5. And so when I just look at his stats here, now, sure, like this is nitpicking. He also has 5 top 10s, but nothing, like he's no wins, no top 3s. I'm sure he was been in contention in some of these, but you know, maybe it's just when we talk about Riviera and Pebble Beach, that if it's not firm, it's just like, hey, maybe it's just not the best fit for Scotty Scheffler.
Yeah. I mean, I think I think that's a very plausible theory. And
or
one
just
that
doesn't make he's maybe not quite as great as he is everywhere else. Like he's still really good, but just not that dude that we're used
what you're saying. What resonates about what you're saying, we're connecting it to places we've seen him, you know, get frustrated in the past. The one that comes to mind again is Pinehurst in 2024, where what we heard in sort of the post analysis there was that everyone had hit the same type of shot, like to the same place on the green. You know, that those turtle back Donald Ross greens, false fronts, like you couldn't hit a lot of different shots. You had to hit it to one place, and everyone's largely putting from one location. So it negates like a piece of his skill set that can make him elite. And so, I mean, now I
kind of disagree with that though. Like in a way when you say it, it's like, shouldn't his strength be to be able to do that better than everybody else?
It should be. I think all these things are, and I'm trying to remember where I heard this analysis and whether or not I felt like I agreed with it. Like I think it could go both ways. Like yes, okay, he could be able to hit the shot to the placement on the green, but maybe, you know, it's just it's whatever the situation is. I think what it boils down to is that there are different tests on the PGA Tour and in majors, some of which bring out skill sets that are unique, and some of which call for a sort of grind and a sort of, you know, just working your way through it, minimizing mistakes. And I'm not saying that's what this week is at Riv, but when you're playing, and again, this kind of bleeds into the discussion we're going to have later in the show about, you know, the conditions we just saw at Riv and at Pebble Beach the last couple of weeks, which are two of the greatest venues in the game of golf, but really are not playing like it this time of year. It's like, what do we want to keep doing this right now, or do we want to move this to a place in the year where these venues can really shine, and you would get a firm fast Riv, you would get a firm and fast Pebble Beach, and maybe a player like Scotty Scheffler, you get to see a full set of artistry on display because he's playing a golf course that's set up for an elite, you know, touring professional test. I don't know.
He's really good, man, and he just was a little bit off at that Pinehurst event. Didn't putt well either. So I don't know. I'm with you, but I'm not with you on that argument because I watched Bryson be able, you know, he was able to hit it to these spots pretty much every single time. Was so conservative that week. It was I think a huge reason why he won that golf tournament. Just typically an aggressive player just was playing to the spots, but it's I'm curious to see. You know, I think Bay Hill will be the first, you know, really good test to see. All right, this was one that you expect him to win.
I wanted one more, you know, star of the game that I want to hit on the way out before we have a few other names to wrap up Riv, and then we'll get into this PGA Tour schedule discussion that we've been hinting at. Xander Schauffele, and we've again traced what's happened over the last year plus for Xander. Wins 2 majors in 2024, a true 5-tool player at that stage in the game. Has that rib injury to start 2025, and after the century only makes 14 starts through the BMW Championship. He did not make it to the Tour Championship. I went back and looked, and I was like, I guess maybe 2025 for Xander was not as bad as we thought it was. He still had 3 top 10s and 7 top 20s in just 14 starts, and then he goes on to win the Bay Current Classic in Japan the fall of 2025. But of course, starts this year, misses the cut at the Farmers to end his made cut streak. Ties for 41st in Phoenix, ties for 19th at Pebble Beach. This week felt like progress, right? Ties for 7, 12 under. if Torrey was the official home game from the San Diego area, this was a nice bounce back for like the greater Southern California region. What encouraged you the most about the way Xander played this week and kind of makes you feel like, hey, this could be the full bounce back to the guy we saw winning 2 majors in 2024?
Well, iron game was just top notch at times this week. And, driver, I don't think this was a good week to really tell how good you were driving the golf ball with how it seemed to play, where everybody was just trying to mash it off the tee. But I was really, I was happy to see that he had really some good putting days. The first couple of days putted really poorly on the weekend, which is why you saw him a little bit further down the leaderboard. But putts well on the weekend. He's right up there having a chance to win the golf tournament.
Yeah. It's just, I remember the putter last year, we were talking about like loft was off. There's all sorts of weird stuff happened to him, but nice to see that result. Let's start naming some names, Smylie, and I'm going to bunch these first two together because they were both on your Smylie 7 of potential breakout candidates to start the year. Okay. Kurt Kitayama, Aldrich Potgieter. Okay. And I'm saying this, I'm not putting this on you. Why are Kurt Kitayama and Aldrich Potgieter using blade putters? Like we just talked about it last week. This is the era of the mallet. These guys are so good at everything. That's the one part of their game that they have trouble with. Can we please get both those guys into mallets?
Are you saying guys can't putt good with blades now? Are you giving up? Have you given up?
I'm close to giving up.
Have you given up on yourself?
Yeah, I'm a mallet guy. I am a mallet guy now, and that literally happened in July of 2025. There was too many guys going that way. I said, look, man, it's just why am I making the game harder for myself? And so here we are.
There's gosh, isn't it so nice? So the element of feel that you have with the blade when it's on, oh, it's great. But there's nothing more frustrating when you're missing putts inside of 6 feet with the blade. It is the worst, especially if you're pulling them. I hate that feeling.
Well, and I remember, I don't know how many years ago this was, but Adam Scott talking about he'll bring his blade out every once in a while just to practice with it, practice just to get some feel with it. But then he goes back to his broomstick, because that's the one that's more reliable. But I actually do from time to time do what Adam does, where I'll just take the blade out for a day. I'll just to make sure I haven't lost, a connection to the feel of the putting process. It's nice.
Do the same.
Yeah.
Kitayama and Potgieter. Well, this was a great week for Aldrich. A top 5. I think they said on the broadcast, this is the youngest player to ever have a top 5 since Al Geiberger, like 50 years ago.
Wow.
So there was, I don't know who came up with that nugget, but shout out to the stats guy over at CBS ripping that one, because that was a great one. It's just a friendly reminder how young Potgieter is. Having him on the show, just listening to some of the things he was having to deal with having 20-yard gaps with his irons, like his wedges were always coming up long to front pinch, just things that like normal humans don't have to deal with. But he was just such a yoked, bulked up dude that just can't do anything but just smash the golf ball. Now I know his swing is definitely improving, and but hey, that's a big week. With the right course matchup right now for him, it seems like if you get him in a place where he can find his golf ball, he's going to have such an advantage off the tee. Just smashes it. And then Kitayama, he's got a very well-rounded game. He really does. Like across the board with his irons, driver. And then the thing that I talked about, the reason why I brought it up is that, dude, his driving distance, he was like top 10 in driving distance last year. And it completely threw me for a loop. He's, low to mid 180s ball speed guy. Like what? Like that's so fast.
Yeah, and I'm being a little hard on Kurt as well. He actually finished 13th in strokes game putting this week, so it was nice to kind of.
Oh come on!
I mean,
you gotta lead with that. That's a shame.
I mean,
you can't just say that and then
don't let the facts get in the way of a good story, Smylie.
No.
do you have? Like, oh, well, we don't know we're going to play an arbitration for our top pitcher in school ball. He gets the $30 million. You go and get Valdez, who's 32 years old, and you pay 3 years, $115. Now you have a legitimate 1-2 punch and still have Flaherty in that lineup as well. If you're looking at a move singularly that I didn't expect to happen here and loved it, Detroit's move to get Framber Valdez, sensational for me.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
The expectations were big for this team coming into this season. They've struggled to live up to them. When you think about the 4 losses for Purdue, they've really felt ugly. Iowa State smashed this team in their building. They dropped the game to UCLA and followed it up by losing at home to Illinois.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
I have my own account. I don't need to have any. He didn't say any of that. So I'm of the belief that if someone accuses you of something and you don't deny it, there's a reason you didn't deny it. Because you kind of feel like they got me. And yes, I'm not going to tell you I did it, but I did it. Yeah. Don't you think so?
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
Yeah, and with the Clippers, Craig, it feels like Kawhi is on an island. You saw him ball out in the All-Star game the other day. Kawhi was very impressive, and he's had a fantastic season. I think when you look at the Clippers, if the Clippers' record was better, but he's still James Harden, you would be talking about Kawhi as an MVP candidate. He's been one of the best players in the league in terms of how he's been playing. He's been fantastic.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
A few other guys I wanted to hit, but Adam Scott solo for 263s this week. Scott, see, I'm so mad at myself because I should have suggested for one and done. 2 wins here, 2 runner-ups. This guy loves playing here. So dumb.
We got to start seeing the board better.
Well, on the topic of one and done suggestions, Jake Knapp was kind of my best of the week. You had Marco Pinch. Marco Pinch was looking great for a while.
He was.
And then had a rough Saturday. You also mentioned Pearson Coody. What a Iron Man start to the year for him. Played 6 in a row. He finished, I think it was tied for 16th. He played 6 in a row and only finished outside the top 20 once last week at Pebble Beach.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. And I also had to throw in there Colin Morikawa. 2 back-to-back good weeks, trending in the right direction.
Yeah, I really feel good about Bay Hill, about who's kind of trending that way. Like Kitayama's one there. I think he's going to be a great suggestion and play for that week. But yeah, there's been a lot of guys that have impressed me on this West Coast swing. I mean, I think the one name that jumps off the board for me, we've talked to Pearson Coody, we've talked Jacob Bridgeman, Chris Goddard already in the show, but Jake Knapp.
Yes.
Every time you turn on the PGA Tour app, he is in the top 10 of the leaderboard. He's played 5 times, and he's had a top 11 in every single start.
Yeah.
And he's had 2 events that are right around that 5th place, but everything has been virtually inside the top 10 in every single one of his starts. So you could argue that Jake Knapp has had the best, most consistent start to the year. Jacob Bridgeman, Pearson Coody, Chris Goddard. These are all young Americans, man. This is a new crop. Like when we're talking about, all of the guys that we've covered and I've competed against and grew up with, they're 5-6 years older than a lot of these guys, right? Like these are guys in their mid-20s, and with Goddard, Bridgeman, Knapp, and there was one other guy we were talking about too. But yeah.
Okay, so I was trying to figure out the start that Jake missed. So he didn't play Amex.
Now,
but so he's now, this would be this is 4th in a row, and I haven't looked to see if his name is in the field at Cognizant, but you got to think he'd play there as a place he shot 59 last year.
I don't.
Maybe
think
not
he's
though.
Playing. No.
Interesting. Okay, so we've hinted this a couple times, and I want to kind of dig into it in further depth right now, which is each of these early events in the season, the subtext to all this is we don't know what the schedule is going to look like in 2027 and beyond. So each of these events, we sort of check in and say, where do we think it's going to be on the schedule going forward? We like where it was this year. And so we mentioned bad weather at Pebble last week, rain, the time of year, soft conditions. Colin Morikawa goes out and ties the scoring record for the tournament of 22 under. And then same thing here at Riv, bad weather to start the week, soft conditions once again. That 20 under scoring record for the Genesis Invitational was in danger briefly before Jacob Bridgeman ultimately ends up at 18 under. And you know when I think Pebble and Riv would both play firmer and faster, Smylie? In the August, if they were part of a playoff lineup. And so I want to talk to you two kind of pitches. Tell me how you feel about these, where in the schedule these feel like the right place. But a California swing for the playoffs that goes Torrey, Pines, Riviera, Pebble Beach. You could not miss those as a golf fan. And I think that actually have a lot of appeal beyond your hardcore golf fans. It'd be an absolutely perfect time of the year for conditioning. I was there last year for the Walker Cup, played Pebble. The rough was up, everything was rolling out, the greens were firm. It was as good as it gets on the Monterey Peninsula. And then you work back to the front of the schedule and maybe build like sort of a desert swing to kick things off of in whichever order you want to, the Amex and the WM Phoenix Open, and of course at Pebble to start the year.
Oh, I was like, in August?
No.
I was like, I think it's kind of hot there.
Well, because I'm looking at where events can move, right? And so if we think Sony's going away, right? And so now we're talking about our other options there, the events that stay or go. You keep the Amex, you keep the WM at the front of the schedule, whether that's Super Bowl week and beyond, or it starts the week after the Super Bowl. But you're going to get good weather those weeks and two sort of desert climates. The course conditioning should be in a good place. And also what you do there is if you move Pebble to August for the Tour Championship and lose the Pro-Am aspect of that, you retain a marquee Pro-Am event in the Amex. So do you like the shape, like the bookends I've given you for this schedule?
I do. I think that I would like to see the PGA Tour season start the week before the Super Bowl. Like I think Amex should be that week and Phoenix should be Super Bowl week. I know that the PGA Tour doesn't want to start their big opening weekend at the Amex. It just isn't going to maybe quite either. Well, I think it's getting a good field, by the way. Like the field
it's gotten better the last few years. Oh yeah,
it was great. Amex is a good sponsor, and I think they're under the impression they just want all the eyeballs. The PGA Tour is back, and they want to just own everything after football. And I understand, like you can understand that's great logic, but I just feel that there's still an opportunity in between the AFC and NFC Championship and the Super Bowl that weekend to just get everybody a flavor of, okay, hey, we're back. Here's everybody. Now, if you want to hang out in Phoenix and watch the hoopla in Phoenix, hey, this is a fun week. But the week after that, like this, we're here. Like we just had two nice warm-ups before we got to this spot. I'm not under the impression that you have to wait till after football because we never needed to, and it's never affected how anybody feels or about the PGA Tour, whether they're going to watch it or not. Now, maybe you could promote it more, but I don't know. I want to see those events happen. I think they're good venues, good sponsors, good places. So, and then I'm with you on the West Coast being the end of the year. If not there, go to some big markets, but definitely keeping the West Coast in that playoff swing.
Well, and if you think about the composition of that schedule, because with those two events that I've suggested to kind of start the year with, both those have an odd element to them, right? Like the Amex being a Pro-Am on 3 different courses and the WM being the WM. It's a party, right? Which a lot of guys don't want to play it for that reason. And so, but if you put either one of those in whichever order you want to and kind of almost look at it where these are unconventional events, we're kind of easing into the season in that sort of way. Like the Amex being a good warm weather spot. And it's also a thank you to all the sponsors who are playing alongside the Tour Pros that week. WM is what the WM is. You know, it's exciting for a lot of guys. The 16th hole, like the atmosphere is unrivaled. That being what it is. But then you go right to the Florida swing. I think it improves the fields. The Cognizant suffered a ton the past couple of years because you've just gone the first, 6-7 weeks of the season.
How much do you think tanking is hurting the NBA right now, too? And what we're seeing, like we saw with that Jazz and Orlando game a week ago, how much do you think that's hurting the game?
I can't wait until professional sports in the United States adopts a European model, especially like a Premier League model, and they start doing relegation. The day you start doing relegation, everything changes. Everything will change.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
Well, I ended up adding this since our show started here, Rohit, but his points prop tonight at 20.5 is the same number from the Iowa State game. That's a bit of a mistake, right? When we consider the gap in opponents here. I think Peterson specifically steps up. He needs to. I think he kind of owes this team a great performance.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
I know that Florida lost at home to Auburn, and it's a real thing that happened. So you can't strike it from the record. But if you did, I think Florida's looked like the best team in college basketball for about 2 months. And I think there are a bunch of results that suggest that.
College basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
Hulme and JT coming down the stretch. The shot value out there is just so incredibly high. You got
with the snake pit. That's the name of their kind of thing at the finish. Mm-hmm. Always exciting watching that stretch.
Yeah, that's all about Jacob Bridgeman again. Could see him going out and winning for the second time. That's a really good golf course for him. He's played well there before. It's all about really iron player out there. You got to be a really good iron player, and then of course. Not driving off the planet like I have there, but it is like just real tall trees, small greens. Wind is typically up. Can't really feel the wind kind of swirling through the trees. So it's all about just can you find the green? The greens 14 times in a round. If you can, like you should be able to go out and shoot 3 or 4 under. But yeah, that's. I kind of gave you a list of names. I mean, I could go on and about other guys, but it's a fun stretch. The weather looks good so far for Bay Hill. I'm hoping that we kind of, you're going to get some fronts that come through, right? Like you're going to get some days that, hey, you might be on a bad, you might have a bad set of tee times on Thursday, Friday at the Players. Like it's always interesting to see what happens with when that front comes through. It typically happens, once a week or once every week and a half. So there's a bit of luck involved in the Florida swing because you can catch some bad waves.
Yeah, the waves are always huge. I always find like this time of the year is like when it really starts making major season feel real and close, like tasteful. We're so close to Augusta National, and I feel like it's always. We try to kind of pattern form and see who's going to, play well in these stretches. And now it's like you're closing a chapter here. Who's the guy that's going to continue good form, who played well in the West Coast swing? And maybe who's the guy who we had high hopes for heading into the season who didn't play well in the West Coast swing, who's going to turn it around when he gets to Florida? That's always super interesting. And man, I'm just, this really starts kind of bring the whole season into focus, right?
Yeah, and just to put an exclamation stamp on just what happened today with Jacob Bridgeman winning a signature event at Riv, I think a lot of concern for many people is that you're going to have the same players win these signature events. You're going to have Scotty, Xander, Rory winning all these events, and you're never going to have these young guys win these big signature events. And I think today proved that, hey, get these guys in the field. They play their way in. They're good enough to go and win. And I think it just kind of debunks that whole theory a little bit. And, you need these guys to win these events, and especially on these big stages, because you heard what Bridgman said. I couldn't even feel my hands at the end of the round. It's like that
So
stuff sings to me. Like when guys are just tapping in and just shaking hands and being like, yeah, it was a good win, excited for next week. It's like, no, I need to hear the guy that like literally was painfully trying to not die on the inside, to not lose his golf tournament. And that's what we kind of experienced today. So I think a win for the young guys is good for the overall health of other guys having more and more opportunities, which what the PGA Tour should be all about. It should be a place in which good golf should always give you an opportunity.
I couldn't agree more. Like, I feel like today, when it was starting out with that 6-shot spread, I was thinking back to Quail a couple years ago with Rory and Xander. Like, Rory had this insurmountable lead, and we're looking at this limited field, and it's like, this just stinks. Like, if you have a few more guys in the mix, maybe there are more names in the mix. Now, it got exciting at the end, but, you're looking at Jacob Bridgeman winning this thing, Pearson Cootie in the mix. There are all these guys, Aldrich Potgieter, a ton of young guys that are really making this thing interesting and adding intrigue, in addition to the superstars who are up there, who are recognizable and sellable to a larger fan base. And I go back to the same place on this as we discussed a number of times, you suggested, where it's like, can we just make these at least 100 players? 100 players, that's, another 20 spots that you could give out to guys of the ilk of Jacob Bridgman.
I think every event is going to be that moving forward. So whether you like it or not, that seems to be the way we're heading, Charlie.
Yeah, well, I do like it, so that's good for me. So, Smylie, it's time. It's time to shut this thing down. It's time to get you some. What do you got here? Are we gonna turn on the AC?
Air's on. So
That's
for all of you who didn't want to
badge of honor.
Wall units all episode, you're welcome.
Fantastic. I was gonna say you wore a navy, so it's not as bad. I thought we were maybe gonna see it on your forehead or your glasses fogging up, but we made it.
Tiger in the booth, man.
We made it to the end of the episode, and as always, we appreciate you hanging out with us this week. Look forward to Luke Clanton dropping on Wednesday, or you might just watch a few segments here on the Golf Channel. But whatever it is, we look forward to joining you to recap the Cognizant Classic on Sunday in person. So that should be a good episode. So talk to you back here very soon.
We'll see you next week on the Golf Channel. This has been The Smylie Show.
I listen to this podcast. It's really cool. And
all of our fans and subscribers, but make sure you like and subscribe.
It's cool to see what you guys are doing. I know golf fans appreciate it, but we do too, so please keep it up.
For all the good people on YouTube, like and subscribe.
You guys have some good takes, so I'm happy to come on and shoot the...
I know that Florida lost at home to Auburn, and it's a real thing that happened. So you can't strike it from the record. But if you did, I think Florida's looked like the best team in college basketball for about 2 months. And I think there are a bunch of results that suggest that.
College basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
One check, one stroke of a pen, $43 million that you now have to spend in free agency. Ain't it fun?
Yeah, you take the money out of the left pocket, you put it in the right pocket, basically, Donnie. But you also free up the ability to be able to sign other players. Nobody did this better than the Patriots and Tom Brady in his career, right?
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
George Rutschman is an interesting one here. I mean, this was somebody that we were told was going to be a superstar. I feel like we've done this now with back-to-back young catchers on Baltimore that they've taken. They've taken Matt Wieters. Remember when they took him super high and everyone thought he was the second coming? Then they took Adley Rutschman. I guess the good news is they have Sam Basallo, who's supposed to be fantastic too, but can't whiff on 3 like that, can you?
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.